The vibration of the iron mule wasn't just a sound, it was a physical sensation that lived in the marrow of Ronin's bones. It was a low rhythmic thrumming, like the heartbeat of a dying beast refusing to lie down. To anyone else, the rattling of the loose vent covers and the groan of the cooling pipes would have been maddening. To Ronin, it was the only lullaby that had worked in 20 years. He sat on the edge of the bolted-down bench in the mess hall, his posture rigid. He didn't slouch. Even when exhausted, even when his muscles screamed from the lactic acid buildup of a 3-hour extraction, Ronin sat as if he were waiting for a drill sergeant to walk through the bulkhead. His armor, a battered suit of silver-plated ceramic and plasteel, caught the flickering yellow light of the overhead glow strips. The orange stripe painted diagonally across his chest plate, the mark of his old unit, the Sunbreakers, was chipped, scarred, and stained with the grease of a dozen different worlds. He hadn't bothered to clean it yet. There would be time for that later. Right now, his focus was on the trembling creature across the table. He poured black coffee from a dented steel thermos into a heavy mug. The liquid was thick, dark, and smelled of burnt beans and recycled oxygen. It was terrible coffee. It was the best thing he had smelled all week. Drink. Ronin grunted. His voice, filtered through the external speakers of his helmet, sounded metallic and harsh. A machine trying to mimic a man. He slid the mug across the scratched metal table. It stopped inches from her hands. The girl, the manifest listed her species as a Nerian and her name as Elara, stared at the steaming cup as if it were a grenade. She was small, huddled inside the oversized gray mechanic's tunic Ronin had thrown at her when he pulled her out of the containment cell. The fabric swallowed her frame, making her look even more fragile. Her skin was a pale iridescent blue, the color of a winter sky just before dawn. Her long, pointed ears were pinned flat against her skull, twitching at every creak of the ship's hull. She didn't reach for the coffee. Her large violet eyes were locked onto Ronin's faceplate. Specifically, she was staring at her own reflection in his polarized gold visor. Ronin knew what she saw. She didn't see a savior. She saw a 7-foot tower of armored violence. She saw a faceless golem that had just walked through a wall of blaster fire, broken 3 guards without drawing a weapon, and dragged her onto a ship that smelled like engine oil and ozone. "It's not poison," Ronin said, his patience wearing thin, but his tone remaining steady. "It's caffeine, stimulant. Keeps the heart pumping. You're in shock, kid. You need something warm in your gut." Elara's hands were shaking so badly that they vibrated against the table. Where are the others?" she whispered. Her voice was melodic like wind chimes, but shattered by fear. Ronin took a sip from his own mug, the hot liquid burning his throat. He needed that burn. It reminded him he was still alive. "I don't know," Ronin lied. He knew exactly where the others were. They were in the pits he hadn't been able to reach. He had made a calculation. A cold, hard military calculation. The Iron Mule had life support capacity for 2 extra passengers comfortably, 4 if they pushed it. The extraction window had been 3 minutes. He had taken the one who was closest to death. That was Elara. "You left them," she said, a tear leaking from her violet eye. "The machines, the guards, you left them." "I secured the package I could reach," Ronin corrected, his voice flat. "That's the job. You want to mourn, do it later. Right now, survive." It was a harsh thing to say. He knew it. But pity didn't keep people alive in the outer rim. Anger did. Fear did, adrenaline did. If he could make her angry, she might stop shaking long enough to drink the water she desperately needed. Ronin tapped the side of his helmet. Computer hull integrity check. The ship's AI, a voice that sounded like a bored librarian, responded instantly. Hull integrity at 94%. Microfractures detected in the port cargo bay. Shields recharging, current capacity 30%. 30%, Ronin muttered to himself. Wonderful. A stiff breeze could knock us out of the sky. He looked back at Elara. She hadn't touched the coffee. She was hugging herself, rocking slightly. The terror radiating off her was palpable. It wasn't just the trauma of the camp, it was him. The legends about humans in this sector weren't kind. Humans were the old war myths. They were the species that didn't know when to die. They were considered brutish, ugly, and relentlessly efficient killers. "I cannot," Elara stammered, pointing a shaking blue finger at his helmet. "I cannot speak to a machine. Please, I need to see. I need to see the master." Ronin flinched behind the visor. "Master," he repeated, the word tasting like bile. "We don't use that word on this ship." I'm the captain, you're the passenger. That's the hierarchy. Nobody owns anybody. Show me, she demanded, finding a sudden desperate thread of courage. If you are not a machine, show me. Ronin sighed. It was a long, heavy exhale that fogged up the inside of his visor for a second. He hated this part, he hated the reveal. There is a burden that comes with being a survivor of the Terran Wars. It's not just the memories that haunt you, it's the map of violence written on your skin. Every scar is a story you wish you could forget. Every burn mark is a mistake you promised never to make again. You don't want to see this, kid, Ronin warned softly. The helmet, it's better. It's cleaner. Please, she wept. I need to know. Ronin set his mug down with a deliberate clack. He reached up with both gauntleted hands to the seal at his neck. He twisted the locking mechanism. Hiss. The seal broke, releasing a puff of pressurized air. With a slow, deliberate movement, Ronin lifted the heavy helmet off his head and set it on the table. The silence in the mess hall stretched tight like a wire about to snap. Ronin ran a hand through his short, steel-gray hair. He blinked, his eyes adjusting to the unfiltered light. His eyes were dark, almost black, set in a face that looked like it had been carved out of granite and left out in a sandstorm. But it wasn't the hardness of his features that made Elara gasp. It was the ruin. A thick, jagged scar started at his left temple, slashed violently through his eyebrow, missed his eye by a fraction of an inch, and tore a trench all the way down to his jawline. It was an old wound, healed badly in a field hospital with no anesthetics. The scar tissue pulled at the corner of his lip, freezing his face in a permanent slight grimace, a perpetual frown. To Elara, whose people valued symmetry, smooth skin, and ethereal beauty, he must have looked like a nightmare made flesh. She didn't scream, she didn't recoil. She wept. It started as a soft hiccup, then turned into a sob that racked her entire small body. She covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes wide with horror and sorrow. Ronin picked up his coffee again, looking away. He focused on a rivet in the wall. He was used to this. Disgust, fear. He understood. He looked like the violence she had just escaped. I told you, Ronin said, his voice rougher now, unprotected by the vocalizer. It was a deep, gravelly baritone that rumbled in his chest. Ugly business, war leaves marks. It is broken, Elara sobbed, pointing vaguely at his face. You are broken. We're all broken, kid. Some of us just wear it on the outside. Ronin took a sip. Now drink the damn coffee. He thought she was crying because he was hideous. He thought she was crying because she realized she was trapped in a metal box with a monster. He was wrong. Elara lowered her hands. She looked at the scar, really looked at it. In her culture, scars like that weren't just injuries. They were marks of endurance. But on a human, it looked so raw, so painful. Does it hurt? She whispered. Ronin paused. Only when I smile, which isn't often. He was trying to make a joke to lighten the heavy air, but the timing was off. The ship suddenly lurched. Not a big movement, just a subtle shift in the artificial gravity. Then came the sound, ping. It wasn't a loud alarm. It was a soft, digital chirp from the repeater screen mounted above the mess hall table. Ronin froze. The mug stopped halfway to his mouth. The indifference vanished from his face. The ugly scar contorted as his brow furrowed deep, creating valleys of shadow on his forehead. His dark eyes shifted instantly from the weeping girl to the glowing green grid of the radar screen. Ping. A second chirp, faster this time. Ronin stood up. The movement was so sudden and fluid that it startled Elara into silence. He didn't look like a tired old man anymore. He looked like a coiled spring. He walked to the wall panel and punched a button with a heavy finger. Computer, isolate that signal. Sector 4 rear arc. Analyzing, the AI replied. Contact confirmed, single vessel. High velocity approach. Ronin leaned in closer to the screen, his eyes narrowing. He watched the blip. It wasn't moving like a pirate skiff. Pirates were sloppy. They zigzagged, they wasted energy. This blip was moving in a perfect mathematical arc, an intercept trajectory. Magnify, Ronin barked. The screen fuzzy, then resolved into a wireframe outline. Ronin's blood ran cold. He recognized that silhouette. He had seen it in his nightmares for 15 years. It was a sleek, predatory shape. Sharp wings, a needle-nosed cockpit, and a dark matter engine drive that left no heat signature. That's not a slaver ship, Ronin whispered. Elara, sensing the shift in the room, stood up. She clutched the blanket tighter. What is it? Did they follow us? Ronin turned to look at her. His face was grim, the scar looking darker in the dim light. "Slavers drive garbage trucks with guns taped to them, kid." Thaddeus pointed a thumb at the screen. "That is a Dominion Wraith-class interceptor. That is military-grade hardware." He walked back to the table and grabbed his helmet. He didn't put it on yet. He held it in his hand, staring at Elara with an intensity that pinned her in place. "Who are you?" Ronin asked. His voice was low, dangerous. "Don't lie to me. Slavers don't call the Dominion Navy for a runaway mechanic. They cut their losses. But someone is burning a lot of expensive fuel to catch you." Elara went pale, her blue skin turning almost white. She backed away until she hit the bulkhead. I'm just Elara." "Bullshit," Ronin growled. "That ship out there, it carries a crew of 3. A pilot, a gunner, and a boarding specialist. They don't take prisoners, they erase problems." "You are a problem? Why?" Elara trembled. She reached into the neckline of her tunic and pulled out a small silver chain. Suspended from it was a crystal that pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light, syncing perfectly with the ping of the radar. "It isn't a key," she whispered. "My father, and before they killed him, he told me to swallow it. He said it opens the archive." Ronin stared at the crystal. He knew what an archive key was. It was old tech pre-Federation. It didn't just open a door, it opened secrets. The kind of secrets that toppled empires. The kind of secrets men like Ronin had spent half their lives trying to bury. "Great," Ronin muttered, rubbing his temples. "Just great. I go out for a milk run, and I pick up a galactic conspiracy." Ping, ping, ping. The alarm is continuous now. "Computer," Ronin shouted, turning toward the cockpit corridor. "Time to intercept?"
3 minutes, Captain. They are hailing us."
"Ignore them. Route power to the rear deflectors. Charge the main railgun. Railgun ammunition is at 12% recommendation. Surrender." Ronin let out a short bark of a laugh. It was a dry, humorless sound. He looked at Elara, who was shaking like a leaf. "Listen to me," he said, stepping close to her. He towered over her, casting a long shadow. "Go to the cargo hold. There's a maintenance locker behind the hydraulic press. Get inside, lock it. Do not come out until you hear my voice." "What are you going to do?" she cried. Ronin shoved his helmet onto his head. Click, hiss. The human face, the scar, the vulnerability, all gone, replaced by the mirrored mask of the Ronin. "I'm going to teach them a lesson," his synthesized voice boomed. "They think they're hunting a transport ship. They don't know who's flying it." He checked the heavy mag pistol on his hip and grabbed a kinetic shotgun from the weapon rack on the wall. He racked the slide, CH chunk. "Go!" he roared. As Elara scrambled toward the cargo hold, Ronin strode toward the cockpit. He felt the old familiar weight settle onto his shoulders. It wasn't fear. It was the heavy, suffocating blanket of responsibility. He had spent 20 years trying to run away from war. He had bought this rusty ship to haul grain and machine parts, to live a quiet life where nobody shot at him. But the universe has a twisted sense of humor. You can leave the war, but the war never really leaves you. It just waits for you to get comfortable, and then it knocks on your airlock. Ronin slid into the pilot's seat. The leather groaned. He looked at the radar screen. The red dot was right on top of them. "Incoming transmission," the AI said. "Override authorization, Dominion High Command." "Patch it through," Ronin said. A voice filled the cockpit. It was smooth, cold, and dripping with arrogance. "Unidentified vessel. You are harboring a fugitive of the state. Heave to and prepare to be boarded. You have 30 seconds to comply, or you will be vaporized." Ronin watched the timer count down. 28. He didn't reach for the comms button to beg for mercy. He reached for the manual override on the engine limiters. 30 seconds, Ronin whispered to the empty bridge. A lot can happen in 30 seconds. You can fall in love, you can die, or you can make the biggest mistake of your life. He watched the red dot merge with his own green dot on the screen. "Let's see how you like the taste of Terran steel." Ronin slammed the throttle forward, but he didn't push the nose down to run. He pulled the yoke back hard. The iron mule groaned, a sound like a dying leviathan as its inertia dampeners fought against physics. The heavy freighter didn't accelerate away from the Dominion Interceptor. It flipped on its axis, turning its armored belly directly into the path of the incoming vessel. Crunch. The sound wasn't an explosion. It was the sickening metal-on-metal scream of a collision. The Interceptor, expecting a chase, had been moving too fast to correct. Its magnetic grappling claws slammed into the mule's hull, locking the two ships together in a deadly embrace. Sparks showered down from the cockpit ceiling. The artificial gravity flickered, leaving Ronin weightless for a heartbeat before slamming him back into his seat. "Leech pods," Ronin hissed, unbuckling his harness with practiced speed. "They aren't shooting, they're boarding." He grabbed the kinetic shotgun magnetized to the bulkhead behind the pilot's chair. It was a heavy, ugly weapon, matte black, scarred from years of misuse and loaded with superheated tungsten slugs. It was a relic just like him. It didn't fire graceful beams of light, it fired physics. And physics always won. "Computer," Ronin barked, racking the slide. "CH Chunk, seal the bridge. Vent atmosphere in Sector 3. Cut the lights in the main corridor. Switch to emergency red." "Compliance," the AI droned. "Intruder alert airlock 2. 3 life signs detected. Heavy armor signatures." Ronin didn't run. Running makes you sloppy. He moved with the terrifying rhythmic purpose of a predator entering its own den. There's a specific kind of silence that falls over a ship right before a firefight. It's heavy, thick. It smells of ozone and recycled fear. Most men panic in that silence. They fill it with frantic prayers or nervous chatter. But Ronin, he breathed it in. He moved into the main corridor. The lights cut out, replaced by the rotating crimson glare of the emergency strobes. The ship was now a nightmare of flashing red shadows and deep black corners. Steam hissed from a ruptured coolant pipe, filling the hallway with a dense white fog. He checked his weapon. 6 rounds in the tube. 1 in the chamber. 3 targets. "Let's dance," he muttered. He reached the junction leading to the cargo hold. He could hear them now. The heavy, rhythmic clank, clank, clank of magnetic boots on the deck plating. "Spread out," a synthesized voice commanded from the fog. "The target is likely hiding in the engine room. Humans are cowards by nature, flush him out." Ronin stepped out from behind a support strut. "Coward is a strong word for a man holding a shotgun," Ronin said. The lead trooper, a towering figure encased in pristine white ceramic armor, spun around. His energy rifle hummed to life, the barrel glowing blue, but Ronin was faster. Not because of genetics, but because he knew his ship. He knew exactly where the floor plating was loose. He knew exactly where the steam vent release valve was. Ronin kicked the valve next to his foot. A jet of superheated steam blasted across the corridor, blinding the lead trooper and scrambling his thermal sensors. The alien roared in confusion, firing blindly into the ceiling. Ronin moved through the steam like a wraith. He leveled the shotgun, boom. The sound was deafening in the confined space. The tungsten slug hit the lead trooper center mass. Dominion armor was designed to disperse energy blasts, to refract lasers. It was not designed to stop a half-pound of dense metal moving at hypersonic speeds. The trooper folded backward, his chest plate shattered like cheap glass. The second trooper turned, raising his rifle. Ronin didn't even slow down. He stepped into the line of fire, trusting the angle of his shoulder plate to deflect the glancing shot. A beam of blue energy scorched his pauldron, leaving a glowing scar on the silver metal. Ronin didn't flinch, he racked the slide. Switch chunk boom. The second trooper went down, his legs separated from his body at the knee. The third intruder, the specialist, was smarter. He didn't fire. He dropped his rifle and activated a wrist-mounted energy blade. A humming sword of pure plasma that crackled with lethal intent. He lunged at Ronin, moving with a speed that no human should have been able to match. It was a perfect strike, aimed right for the throat. But Ronin didn't try to dodge. You can't dodge a strike like that in a narrow corridor. You have to trade. Ronin twisted his body, sacrificing his armor to save his life. The energy blade carved a deep, glowing gouge across his chest plate, slicing through the orange stripe of his old unit, burning through the ceramic, and searing the skin beneath. The smell of burnt flesh filled the air. Ronin grunted, a short, sharp sound of pain, but he didn't stop. He used the momentum to slam the butt of his shotgun into the specialist's helmet. Crack! The visor shattered. The alien crumbled to the deck. Silence returned to the corridor, broken only by the heavy, ragged breathing of the human standing in the center of the carnage. The air was thick with smoke, steam, and the metallic tang of blood. Ronin stood there for a moment, checking his vitals. His armor was smoking. The cut on his chest was deep, cauterized by the heat of the blade, but it hurt like hell. His hands were steady, though. They were always steady when the work was done. He turned toward the cargo hold. He walked slowly, favoring his left side. "Orange Dawn," he rasped into the comms. The heavy hydraulic door of the cargo hold hissed open. Elara was standing there. She hadn't hidden in the locker like he told her. She was standing in the doorway, clutching the blanket, her violet eyes wide and terrified. She looked at the ruin in the hallway, the dead soldiers, the shattered armor, the scorch marks on the walls. And then she looked at Ronin. He had taken off his helmet again. The air scrubbers were working overtime to clear the smoke, but the haze still hung low around him like a shroud. Blood was trickling from a cut on his forehead, running down and mingling with the old jagged scar on his face. He looked terrifying, a monster bathed in violence, a destroyer of worlds. But Elara didn't see a monster anymore. She took a step forward. Her bare feet slapped against the cold metal deck. She walked past the bodies of the Dominion elite, soldiers who terrified entire star systems without even looking at them. She stopped in front of Ronin. He looked down at her, wiping the blood from his eye with the back of his gauntlet. "We're clear," he said, his voice rough. "But we need to move, more will be coming." "The sensors show—" Elara reached out. Her hand, small and pale blue, trembled as she touched the smoking gouge on his chest plate. She could feel the heat radiating from the armor. She could smell the burnt skin. "You took the hit," she whispered. Her voice broke. "He would have killed me, but you stepped in front." "That's the job," Ronin grunted, trying to step back. "Don't touch it, it's hot." But she didn't pull away. She looked up at his face, at the scar that split his eyebrow and twisted his lip into that permanent frown. In the mess hall an hour ago, she had wept because she thought it was a mark of cruelty. She thought he was a beast who enjoyed pain. Now, seeing the fresh wound crossing his chest, overlaying the old scars of his past, she understood. That scar wasn't an ugly disfigurement, it was a receipt. A receipt for a life he had saved in the past, paid for in flesh. It was the only thing standing between her and the void. "I thought," Elara started, tears welling up in her eyes again. But these were different tears. They weren't born of fear. They were born of a gratitude so deep it hurt. "I thought you were a monster." Ronin looked at her, his expression softening just a fraction. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the crushing weight of exhaustion. "Most people do, kid, it keeps them away." "No." Elara shook her head violently. She reached up and, with surprising boldness, touched the old scar on his cheek. "The monster is what you keep at the door. The man is what stands behind it." Ronin flinched at her touch, then held still. He wasn't used to gentleness. He was used to recoil. He was used to orders. "Why?" she asked again, the same question from before, but with a new weight. "I am nothing, I am just a mechanic. Why bleed for me?" Ronin sighed. He looked at the dead soldiers, then at the vast, cold starfield visible through the viewport. "Look at me, Elara." She looked. There is no such thing as nothing when there's a heartbeat involved. And in this galaxy, nobody fights for the little guy anymore. They fight for flags, they fight for credits, they fight for power. He gently took her hand from his face. "I fight because I'm the only one left who remembers what it's like to be helpless. And as long as you're on my ship, you aren't helpless, you're family." He turned away, the moment of vulnerability passing as quickly as it came. He was the captain again. He had a ship to fly and a wound to patch. "Now grab the medkit from the bulkhead. I need some biofoam on this before I pass out. Then you're going to tell me exactly where that key leads, because we just started a war, and I want to know what we're dying for." Elara wiped her eyes. She didn't look scared anymore, she looked determined. She reached into her tunic and pulled out the pulsing crystal. "It leads to the lost sector," she said, her voice steady. "To the origin of the human fleets. The legends say they are sleeping, waiting for the key." Ronin froze. He looked at the crystal, the lost sector. The graveyard of the old war, the place where his ancestors had supposedly vanished. "The sleeping fleet," Ronin whispered. "I thought that was a myth to scare cadets." "It is not a myth," Elara said. "It is an army, and they will listen to you." Ronin let out a long, slow breath. He looked at his battered ship, his ruined armor, and the small, brave alien girl standing in the wreckage of his life. He could dump her at the next station. He could run. He could hide in the nebula and drink himself into oblivion. But then he looked at the radar. More red dots were appearing at the edge of the system. The Dominion was waking up. "Computer," Ronin said. "Awaiting input," the AI replied. "Set a course for the coordinates on the crystal. Divert all auxiliary power to the hyperdrive. Captain, that course leads into unmapped space. Navigation hazards are extreme." Ronin picked up his helmet and tucked it under his arm. He looked at Elara, and for the first time in 20 years the frown lifted. He didn't smile. Ronin didn't really smile. But the hardness in his eyes melted into something that looked a hell of a lot like hope. "Never tell me the odds," Ronin said. "Just tell me when the coffee is ready." He put a heavy hand on Elara's shoulder, guiding her toward the cockpit. "Buckle up, kid. The Iron Mule has one more run in her." and if we're going to wake up a sleeping army, we better not be late. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, streaking away from the wreckage of the Interceptor, Elara didn't weep. She watched the stars stretch into lines of light, and she felt safe. Not because the universe was kind, but because she was standing next to the one thing the universe feared more than a black hole: a human who had decided to be a father.